President of Kenya.
Your Excellency, Joseph Biden, President of the United States of America, Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, leaders of delegation in attendance. Foremost, let me take this opportunity to commend you, President Biden, for convening this summit aimed at strengthening democracy, promoting respect for human rights, and fighting corruption. Kenya has since independence worked hard to deepen its democratic credentials and to entrench the rule of law. I wish to confirm that we have achieved significant democratic milestones, which include, amongst other things, the adoption of an inclusive and progressive Constitution of Kenya 2010 that incorporates an expansive Bill of Rights and more decentralized governance structures of 47 county governments with increased county capacity in localized planning, public expenditure management, and so on. An equally important achievement is recognition and promotion of diversity, especially for previously marginalized groups such as women, youth, and persons with disabilities, a strengthened and independent judiciary, a robust and engaged bicameral parliament, and an enhanced framework for public participation in decision-making processes. In this regard, Kenya commits to strengthen democracy, defend against authoritarianism, combat corruption, and respect for human rights within the country, the East African community, the African region, and the world at large. We are confident in the resilience of our democracy, which arises from a deep foundation of values we hold in common with other democracies around the world. Excellencies, Kenya has engaged in election culture, and since independence, Kenya has held regular and periodic elections, initially under a single party and eventually transitioned to the current multi-party system. Towards this end, my administration is on course to hold the third general election under the 2010 Constitution. Regionally, Kenya plays a critical role as a guarantor of regional peace and security in the Horn of Africa and the Great Lakes region. We are, however, concerned by the rising incidences of coups and unconstitutional changes of government, which are contrary to democratic values and are a threat to peace and stability. I commend the support that the international community has continued to extend to Kenya through various mechanisms, particularly the collaboration in countering terrorism and radicalization. Kenya remains committed to all efforts to restore entrenched democracy in our region through supporting reconciliation between the parties in conflict in Ethiopia, peace and stability in Sudan and South Sudan, as well as the stabilization of Somalia. Kenya has been at the forefront in the participation in peacekeeping operations within the African continent and beyond. Our active participation in peacekeeping is testimony to our confidence in a crucial role it plays in the restoration of democratic institutions and leadership. Kenya has taken significant measures to strengthen its fight against corruption. The posture, the will, and actions taken by government speak to this acclaim. Evidenced at the onset by the open governance space that allows for unrestrained whistleblowing and reporting. We have, on a more practical level, adopted innovative prevention, investigation, and asset recovery strategies that have begun to bear fruit. Through the adoption of a multi-agency approach bringing together intelligence, investigation, prosecution, and restitution agencies, Kenya has achieved its highest level of success in investigating and prosecuting corruption-related cases, as well as recovering assets from corruption, both in-country and from across the globe. We have anchored preventative pillar as a key to our anti-corruption agenda. In this regard, Kenyan children are now learning honesty, integrity, diligence, and hard work through a revised competency-based curriculum. The mark of our success in the war against corruption is to continue developing accountable institutions and to grow local organic solutions demanding exercise of integrity by the current and also future generations. Kenya, being a member of the United Nations Security Council, continues to urge countries to also embrace diversity, respect, and appreciate people of all backgrounds, regardless of their race and identity. Many differences in the world today emanate from gaps in models used to manage grievances. Kenya, through her experience in building peace in the region, has ideas, experiences, and perspectives that have not only been useful in building bridges of divide amongst political adversaries locally, but which also could be useful in carrying out the Security Council's mandate. We seek to deliver our contribution in the context of 4 broad policy pillars: regional peace and security, counterterrorism and violent extremism, peace support operations, as well as climate-related security. As the United States hosts a conference of democracies, Kenya appreciates that the core message that needs to emerge from it is that this form of government can deliver solutions to major challenges. We want to welcome you to a more ambitious partnership that entrenches this success in growing our economies, minimizing the challenge of terrorism in this region, and strengthening regional peacekeeping stabilization. Further, a system that promotes human rights and combating corruption and working together to respond to humanitarian, health, climate change, and man-made emergencies, utilizing Kenyan expertise, our location, and the presence of the United Nations. As I conclude, I wish to once again confirm my administration's commitment to working with other nations in strengthening democracy, promoting respect for human rights around the world, and fighting corruption. I thank you all for your attention.
The President of Botswana.
Mr. President, it gives me great pleasure to represent the Republic of Botswana at this summit. I therefore wish to express my sincere gratitude to President Biden for inviting us to participate at this important summit for democracy. We commend your leadership for hosting this summit. This summit is a call to all global leaders to recalibrate their resolve to bolster democracy worldwide, defend it against authoritarianism, fight corruption, and promote the respect for human rights. Botswana's democracy. Mr. President, from time immemorial, our forefathers have practiced this craft, passing it from generation to generation. Our democracy is founded on the following key principles: unity, consultation, humility, and the respect for the rule of law. Our democratic dispensation is centered around the Kotla system, which is our traditional Congress, so to speak, of consultation, which recognizes the value of everyone's opinion. Botswana's main theme as she participates in the summit will be celebrating democracy and enhancing its future sustainability. Our commitment to enriching democracy is anchored on socially inclusive national strategies reflecting the will of the people, their consent and participation, while focusing on long-term goals such as the following: combating corruption. Mr. President, the government of Botswana has prioritized the need to improve service delivery to drive our national development agenda, strengthen robust institutional frameworks that are transparent, accountable, and free from corruption. To this end, Botswana has passed a law on the declaration of assets and liabilities by the political leadership and senior civil servants, including those involved in the procurement of public goods and services. And to operationalize this law, the Ethics and Integrity Directorate has been established. We continue to ensure that oversight institutions, such as the Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, the Auditor General, and Ombudsman, are adequately resourced to enable them to conduct their affairs with acceptable levels of efficiency. Human rights. Mr. President, the need for nations to intensify efforts in making human rights a reality for all peoples across the world without discrimination, particularly in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, cannot be overemphasized. Botswana is ready to work with the democratic world to champion the promotion and protection of human rights. As we renew our call for democracy, Botswana will actively pursue the following collaborations with your esteemed country: hosting the National Democracy Institute Democracy Summit. We are committed to hosting the National Democracy Institute Summit in Gaborone in the first half of 2022, subject to the COVID-19 situation, under the theme Constitutionalism and democratic consolidation in Africa. Its objective is to promote dialogue on the consolidation of democracy in Africa. Collaboration between the University of Botswana and Presidential Precinct on strengthening democracy. The University of Botswana Department of Political and Administrative Studies is currently pursuing a partnership with the University of Virginia Presidential Precinct to strengthen democracy in Africa. The partnership is aimed at facilitating a collaborative agreement between the University of Botswana's Democracy Institute and the Presidential Precinct, including the University of Virginia College of William and Mary James Madison, Montpellier, James Monroe Highland, and William Schwartz Morven. Strengthen support for Democracy Works Foundation, Botswana. Through the Democracy Works Foundation Botswana Training Academy, which was launched in October 2021 as a partnership between the United States of America Embassy and the Independent Electoral Commission, training and mentorship support has been extended to women in politics to enhance their participation in national politics. In closing my remarks, Mr. President, I want to reassure you of my government's commitment to build a strong international coalition to defend the quality, integrity, and resilience of democracies around the globe. I thank you.
The President of Malawi.
Your Excellency, Mr. Joseph Biden Jr., President of the United States of America and host to this Summit for Democracy. Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, distinguished guests and delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin with a question. What does the recent state of democracy in the foreign nations have in common? The United States in North America, France and Switzerland in Europe, South Africa and Egypt in Africa, Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Iraq in the Middle East, China and Myanmar in Asia. The answer to this question is found in a 2020 special report by Freedom House. That report revealed that in all these 10 countries, as well as 70 other countries around the world, democracy grew weaker during the COVID-19 pandemic. What is remarkable is that Freedom House reported that there was only one country on the entire planet whose democracy grew stronger during that period. That country is my country, Malawi. The reason for this has nothing to do with the size of our population, nor the strength of our economy and military, nor the length of time Malawi has been a democratic state. Strengthening democracy, even under adverse conditions, is about three things. First, having strong governance institutions carrying out their constitutional mandate when the situation demands it. Second, having political leaders use their platforms to engage citizens in actively holding those institutions accountable. And third, protecting the rights of citizens and enforcing consequences legally on those who violate them. To these ideals, Malawi remains committed and calls on all nations to follow suit. Thank you.
The President of Namibia.
Mr. Joe Biden, President of the United States of America, Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to express appreciation to the government of the United States of America for having organized and inviting us to this summit for democracy. Namibia is a nation founded on the principles of democracy, rule of law, and justice for all. Since gaining independence one of the most important priorities of the Namibian government has been the creation and establishment of an institutional framework necessary for democratic governance. Over the past 31 years, we have held 7 free and fair elections, and I am the 3rd democratically elected president of our country in this short space of time, serving my 2nd and final term. Our judiciary forms the bedrock of our governance architecture, and we view judicial independence as sacrosanct. The freedom of speech, the freedom of association, and the freedom of movement are enshrined in our Constitution. We are a nation absent of political prisoners, and our commitment towards political, religious, and media freedom remains resolute. I have unequivocally expressed the irrevocable commitment of the Namibian government to media freedom by stating that as long as I am the president of the Namibian Republic, no journalists will be arrested or detained on the basis of their work. Testament to Namibia's commitment and practice in maintaining an excellent record of media freedom for the past 31 years, the World Press Freedom Index published by Reporters Without Borders ranks Namibia as number 1 in Africa, and this year, 24th globally with the freest media environment. I think we are beating some of the big countries too. In terms of the fight against corruption, Namibia has put in place effective measures and established independent institutions to fight corruption. Recently, and in addition to wide-ranging Prevention of Organized Crime Act 29 of 2004, a Whistleblowers Protection Act was promulgated to enhance our effectiveness in fighting corruption. All these efforts are driven by a clear national political will of zero tolerance towards corruption. Taking all of this into consideration, I wish to emphasize the fact that true democratic freedom is impossible to sustain in absence of economic equity. We therefore view economic inequality as a greater threat to national and global democracy. It is for this reason that we have prioritized poverty eradication, gender equality, and broad-based economic development as enablers of shared prosperity. Only by creating a more just and equitable society will we truly ensure that our democracy delivers for the needs of our people. Therefore, Namibia stands ready to hold hands with all the world's democracies to strengthen democracy and pull in one direction towards an inclusive, stable, peaceful, and prosperous future built on respect for the human rights and economic aspirations of all the citizens. I thank you.
The President of Nigeria.
Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Governments, I would like to begin by expressing my thanks to President Joe Biden and the government and people of the United States for hosting this summit to review the state of democracy today around the world. For us in Nigeria, we welcome the opportunity to set forth an affirmative agenda for democratic renewal in view of recent and current existential threats to democratic governance and the institutions. Mr. President, Your Excellencies, mindful that democracy is a process that must be nurtured, we are implementing good governance standards across all spheres of government. Fundamental to this effort is anti-corruption and efficient service delivery. As we count down to the 2023 general elections, we are creating the enabling environment and strengthening existing mechanisms to ensure that Nigeria records another peaceful transfer of power through free, fair, and transparent elections. May I reiterate that we are firmly committed to our Constitution and our electoral laws, and we will defend these laws to guide our attitude and conduct. Your Excellencies, despite the progress we have made, democratic institutions in Africa and beyond are facing growing threats characterized by military coups and manipulated constitutional amendments to elongate tenures. The relapse in multilateral cooperation is itself a major threat to democracy. I cannot, therefore, overemphasize the urgent need for stronger and mutual actions to common problems. Partner and developed democracies must avoid being breeding grounds for anti-government movements that threaten our nascent democracies. Mr. President, Nigeria's faith in upholding, promoting, and protecting democratic values and principles remain firm. We will continue to lead the way towards strong democratic values among the nations of Africa. Thank you.
The President of Guyana.
I remain a firm adherent of the proposition made by the great British Second World War leader, Winston Spencer Churchill, that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. We in Ghana should know, for we have tried virtually all the others. We've held elections that were not free and fair. We've had constitutional regimes without limitations placed upon executive power. We've had rule by law without rule of law. And we've lived under a number of military dictatorships. A month from today, 7th January 2022, will be exactly 29 years since the Constitution of the Fourth Republic of Ghana came into force. It has inspired the longest period of stable constitutional governance in our history. And I'm happy to state that a consensus has emerged in Ghana that the democratic form of governance is preferable and the benefits are showing. Ghana is rightly considered a beacon of democracy and stability in Africa, where respect for the principles of democratic accountability, human rights, and the rule of law have enabled us to oversee 8 presidential elections in the Fourth Republic, with 5 presidential transitions and 3 peaceful transfers of power through the ballot box from one party to another. We're determined to hold on to this status. Excellencies, the strength of any democracy is very much determined by the credibility of its electoral process and respect for the will of the people. We cannot overlook the fact that instability has followed many disputed elections in many parts of the African continent. That is why Ghana's Electoral Commission continues to work to ensure that all stakeholders in the electoral process, that is the citizenry, civil society, and political parties, do not have lingering questions about the legitimacy of an election. On the 2 occasions in which disputes have arisen over the results of elections, it was in the court and not on the streets that the matters were satisfactorily resolved. We're very much aware in Ghana that if we seek to prolong our democratic journey, we need to enhance transparency and accountability in our governance structures and build strong institutions that can fight corruption and the wanton dissipation of public funds. My government has undertaken arguably the boldest initiative since independence to reform and strengthen the capacity of our institutions to tackle corruption in the public sector, including the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor, an independent, non-partisan body with a relevant professional capability and exclusive mandate to investigate and prosecute acts of corruption. I assure you that Ghana will continue to improve on her electoral systems and processes. Out of duty towards our children and grandchildren, we will not give up when it comes to deepening our democracy, guaranteeing the integrity of the electoral process, and consolidating peace through the establishment of accurate electoral registers, the due validation of candidatures, material organization of ballots, and the proclamations of authentic results. Long live Ghanaian democracy and democracy around the world. I thank you for your attention.